So, okay. So over to Simeon.
Right. Hello, everybody. So, I wanted to. I hope you can
Ah,
see my.
yes,
Do
we
you see my?
can, but you've updated to the new OS. So the
Yes, I have.
security warning. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You should see. You should see my Chrome background on Community Central.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. Um, Most of you should be familiar with this. This is a link to our new Workstream. They're not new, Workstream guidelines. I just put the link in the chat just so that you all can have it. All the work streams are now governed by a set of rules. We talked about this a couple of PIs ago, where I shared the deck. That deck lives somewhere on Slack as well in the general channel. But I did want to highlight a few more important changes. First of all, just so that you all can refer to it, I have pasted a link to the Workstream guidelines in the chat there, just so that you can look through it, and so that you can ask yourself if your workstream constitutes an official module loop workstream. And it gives a breakdown of what that includes, including 2 active contributors. Your workstream is a part of our roadmap and is aligned with the product-related goals of the foundation. The requirements of a workstream lead. Workstream leads are meant to have calls and so on and so forth, track issues on GitHub and have a sprint review at least once every 2 weeks, and so on and so forth. Now, a lot of this stuff you already do as workstream leads, but we're tightening up the governance of workstream a little bit by implementing something that we already agreed on, which is the status, reviewing the statuses of our workstream, where official work streams are now classified as either active, inactive, on hold, or closed. Um, this we're implementing it in the following way. One, it starts with this call, the mid-PI review. We usually have this call once a PI, but we're not going to shift it. We will now have a workstream leads call every single month. And this will now going forward.
Smart, you're so smart.
Benjamin, if you don't mind, would you please mute? Thank you. Right.
I've muted him.
Okay, thanks, Paul. So with regards to the mid-PI, once a PI sessions, they will now be monthly, and we'll just basically rename them as workstream leads, monthly workstream leads call. This call is not a closed call; it's open to anyone, so we'll publish it and the details of the call. And on each call, the workstream leads will basically give us an update as to what they're doing. And I'll send out some templates in a little later this week. But basically want to know, what's on the backlog, what has been accomplished since the last month, what's still missing, are there any challenges, how can we solve that? And we'll now require that workstream leads post it on Community Central, which is this nifty tool you can see here, community.moduloop.io. You can see product council, community council, some DA items, a few announcements from the foundation are posted here, updated workstream dashboard and roadmap and so on and so forth. Now, after this particular call, Paul Makin, in his capacity as managing Module Loop's product, will assign the status to each of the work streams, whether it is active, when it is inactive, on hold, or closed. And then after that call, we will also Paul will also update the workstream dashboard so that it reflects every single month. We'll have an updated version of this that reflects the reality of what people are going on. And this is an effort to give you a bit more timely information and a bit more regularity in the updates of the workstream dashboard, and the same to the product roadmap. So starting from, I believe it is next month, the month of October, I'll be having workstream leads this call is open to everybody. We expect Workstream leads to show up, give their updates, post their updates here on Community Central, and in return, you will all expect an updated dashboard and product roadmap and a status. Now, the one place to check where you can find status of your workstream is here on the list of active workstreams on Community Central. We've got a spreadsheet down at the bottom of this page. I'll put this link in the chat for all of you, just so that you can see. Right. And this information we will require all workstream leads to update. The workstream, who's leading it, descriptions, objectives, acceptance criteria, who are the participants, any call details you have, links to your GitHub or other repositories or other documents, the module loop tag, Community Central tag, and any comments. While this is already updated, we will be reaching out to just fill in a few more gaps, and we will add one extra column here that says status, and the status will reflect the current position as determined by what's happening in the work stream and the assessment by the product manager, whether it is active, inactive, on hold or closed. So those statuses will now start being implemented after the next workstream leads monthly meeting, which will take place at some point in October. Paul will update the schedule, and I'll also follow up with each and every one of you guys, the workstream leads in particular, to make sure that we can help you get all the information you need to success. Great. I don't know if it's quite brief there, but in the chat you've got the links that you need to review everything that is currently all the information that I've shared. But if there are any questions, I'm happy to take one or two, if time allowing, Paul.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Any questions? If not, you're always welcome to ping me on Slack. Yeah, for any queries.
Thank you, Simeon.
Right.
This is all part of making sure. Sorry, Lewis, do you have a question?
Yes, Lewis, go ahead. If you can come off mute.
Yes, please. Good afternoon once more.
Good afternoon, Lewis. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Simeon. So I wanted to get a confirmation, maybe, since these calls will now be monthly. Do we have a tentative date when they will be, and maybe time as well?
Not yet, but Paul will schedule.
Yeah.
We'll schedule and everybody know in advance. But the next workstream call is scheduled for sometime next month. Does that answer your question, Lewis?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much, Simeon.
All right, excellent. Thanks, Lewis. Paul, I'll pass it back to you. Thanks.
We can't hear you, Paul, if you're speaking.
We can't hear you, Paul.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Thank goodness. I wondered what was going on then. Okay, so I'll go back to what I was saying. I just wanted to share the workstream dashboard again. I've been putting this together purely based on my opinions, and I want the opinions of each of the workstream leads as to whether this is accurate or not. Not now, we can do it after this call. But I've classified it as the stages from initial conception right the way through to we're ready for production. So product requirements defined, an MVP backlog is being fully developed. The design has been reviewed by the DA. We have a production grade backlog in place. The development is in progress. It's ready for an MVP proof of concept, or it's ready for a live service or production. And then comments here are basically around my take from attending the workstream meetings. And there is obviously a row here for each workstream that I feel is currently active. And I would very much welcome if workstream leads would actually confirm my assessment or suggest changes. On the roadmap itself, this is actually an update as of yesterday, and nothing is of surprise here. I don't think everything that's on the roadmap now is an active workstream. Those workstreams which I've identified as not active for whatever reason have been pushed out into a backlog, if you like. So on the right-hand side of the roadmap now is the backlog of work streams that I think need to be done but haven't been addressed during the current PI, or were started to be addressed in the PI and have been pushed out simply because there was no progress being made. And I would appreciate the review of the backlog as well from these work stream leads that are here today. I think that's everything from me. Before we start, I have put the for those who didn't hear before, I've put the running order for today in the chat. If you can see it there. So the first person who is going to present today is James Bush, leading on participation tools. So I think that's over to you, James, if you're ready. I hope you can hear me now.
Thank you, Paul. Yes. Bear with me a second while I set up my screen share. Can you see my slides?
Can indeed.
Excellent. Let me just open chat window and participants list so I can see if anyone raises their hand for questions. Okay. Feel free to jump in while I'm talking if anybody has any questions and I don't spot you, raise your hand. Okay, so participation tools, what have we been up to in this work stream so far, this PI? A quick recap on our objectives. We want to create a vibrant, diverse set of open source tools which remove or reduce barriers to participation in merge loop schemes for all sorts of DFSPs, big and large, medium. So to that end, we've been gathering and documenting requirements from stakeholders, members of the merge loop community, existing and future adopters, DFSPs, system integrators alike. And we've been trying to coordinate those resources that have made themselves available to the workstream to try to deliver some solutions which meet those requirements. So far we have some work in progress on a lightweight integration toolkit, which is based on the SDK, initially targeting smaller DFSPs. During our analysis, we felt there was a gap in the current tool set, particularly for smaller DFSPs who don't necessarily have a large amount of recurring revenue that they can invest in hosting an integration platform. But also over the last 2 or 3 months, there's been a considerable amount of product thinking and discussion amongst the community on this workstream. At the end of this presentation, there'll be a link to our Slack channel. Pinned on that Slack channel is a link to a, I almost hesitate to say, Google Doc, which has extensive meeting notes from this PI so far. And our captured requirements. So I would encourage you, if you're interested, go and have a read through those notes, see what we've been up to in detail. We are still quite resource constrained on this work stream. we've made some reasonable progress with what we've got, but we'd always welcome new contributions. And some of you will possibly have seen the announcements on Slack recently that Alain from Wiredin has graciously and kindly stepped forward to lead some work on open banking in this space. So keep your eyes open for some changes in that area soon. Our main focus has been this reduction of infra requirements for running SDK-based integration for DFSPs. Smaller DFSPs have very much smaller budgets than MOMOs or banks. Even smaller banks have considerably more budget to spend on system integration. So with a requirement, a clear goal of reducing the infra requirements and the amount of skills and knowledge needed before you can effectively and securely and safely integrate your small DFSP business into a Major Leap scheme. Been focusing on making changes to the existing tool set and bringing in new features to try to remove those barriers and tailor the offering slightly more towards those smaller folks. We are borrowing from some existing tooling in the community. Some of you will know the Payment Manager product, which is also open source, but doesn't live in Major Leap's code repos currently. It doesn't live in the Major Leap GitHub organization. But we are making use of borrowing, leveraging patterns, tools, practices, and code from that project to try to facilitate the same kind of low-code integration with DFSP backends and make use of that library of core connector components that's been growing steadily in the background over the last few years. We've also made some significant progress improving our documentation for integration, best practice documentation, and document templates to facilitate not just technical but business level integration as well. Thanks to Paul Baker from Infotex for contributing a significant amount of effort in that area. We've also been looking at the rebranding of the SDK scheme adapter, which I guess some of you at least will be familiar with. This component's been around for quite a long time now, but it's evolved significantly. It's had lots of new features and capabilities be added to it over the time. So it's the name SDK scheme adapter doesn't really suit it anymore. So with that in mind and a general rethink of the whole product space, we have gloriously come up with a new name for this set of tools, which is the Major Leap Integration Toolkit. Say hello to the ITK. The Major Leap ITK that we are building is a collection of software components, tools, training materials, documents, utilities, everything associated with making the job of integrating your DFSP into a Major Leap scheme easier, less risky, less time consuming, and less costly. So the initial focus, like I said, was on reducing the hardware requirement barrier to entry. And we're currently targeting endpoint hardware at DFSP side approximately less than $100 US. We have a small side project currently running. I'll hold this up to my camera. Those of you might be familiar with this. This is a Raspberry Pi 5. And we've been working on cut down lightweight set of integration components, Major Leap connector and a core connector, and some configuration utilities to run a DFSP integration on something as small as a Raspberry Pi. That's in progress. So keep your ears peeled for an update at the convening in Kigali in November, where hopefully we'll be demonstrating that working and give you some idea of the performance figures that you can expect through that kind of ridiculously low end hardware. That's a goal we've set ourselves, to enable DFSP to integrate a modular loop scheme with something as small and cheap as that. Thank you very much, everybody who's contributed so far this PI. We wouldn't have made any progress without you folks. You know who you are. But please, if you're interested, if you have some spare cycles to come and even talk about what we're doing, throw your ideas into the melting pot. We gratefully receive your help. So you can contact me, or you can reach out on the Modular Loop Slack channel. Like I said, our document that tracks all our meeting notes and the product requirements that we're working on is pinned in that Slack channel. Please come and join the party. Thank you very much, everybody. Does anyone have any questions before I hand back to Paul? Okay. Thank you,
No
Paul.
questions. Okay, great. Thank you, James. Now, you made brief reference to the fact that there is a sub-work stream now focusing on fintechs, PISP, and open banking. Alan Kajangwe is the lead of that. I haven't asked Alan to present at all today to give a progress update, given that he only started yesterday. That's a bit much to expect any progress. But I would like to give Alan the opportunity to say a few words and perhaps seek contributors to his sub-work stream. Alan, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Paul, for not putting me on the spot. Yeah, so like Paul said, so we offered to start working on this work stream as part of the participation tools, under the participation tools. And the reason why we volunteered to do this is because there is currently a push from our switch to have the PISP APIs implemented as soon as possible. And then we thought it would make more sense if we pulled all the resources together of the community to come up with something that would be beneficial to everyone, not to just one member of the community. So we'll be working on this mostly based on some of the requirements, specific requirements from our switch, which I would expect would be the same for most other adopters. And yeah, we'll be looking forward to working with all of you that are interested in this. I saw Michael Richards already offered his help, much appreciated. James as well did yesterday. So anybody else interested? So we'll try to organize at least a status meeting once a week. Yeah, just to share progress and share ideas on how things are happening. Thank you. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Alan. Okay, on to the next item on our agenda, and that is on-premises deployments. And I know that both Sam Cummery and James Bush have been working on this, Sam in particular. So I don't know which of you is going to present today.
Well, I have a few hastily constructed slides.
James is the lead on this one.
Yeah.
Please.
Let me, I'll talk you through.
Can I just point out, though, that the most recent successful on-premises deployments was conducted by Nathan, who's on the call, with Sam working closely with him. So they have the most direct live experience at the moment. Or is that unfair to highlight?
No, that is very true, Paul. Thank you. I'm sure those guys won't mind you mentioning that, and it's certainly useful for everyone to have some up-to-date context on what's been going on. Let me just re-prepare myself for sharing. So, okay, I'll give you a high-level overview of what's been going on in the work stream and what we've been focusing on and what the focus is going to be going forward. And then maybe Sam or Nathan, if you have any particular interesting updates or anecdotes from your recent experiences doing that on-prem deploy, feel free to share at the end, but it's not 100% necessary if you're shy. So, I just noticed I've not updated this slide. I should say September. My apologies. So, okay, what are we trying to do here? Well, we're trying to make the process of deploying and maintaining long-term carrier grade, national infrastructure grade, however you want to say that. What we mean is the most resilient and highly available infrastructure we know how to do. In private data centers, we need that process to be reliable, quick, easy, and cheap, without cutting any corners on security or carrier grade reliability. So to that end, our aim is to support and maintain a set of tools and documentation that support that objective. So far, we have on-premise deployment capability with still one or two small caveats. We have some self-serve documentation, which has been produced and is being iterated. There is some work ongoing to migrate the DNS, the address resolution system that originally IAC, our infrastructure as code, was built on, was Amazon's Route 53. It's been quite a time-consuming and delicate process to unpick that from the IAC. That's still ongoing, although significant progress has been made. However, we don't have much resource working on this at the moment. I have a single person working on that DNS. There are a couple of other community members working on general updates to IAC, but just one resource permanently focused on that DNS at this point in time. So anybody who is able, we are still looking for support from anyone with infra IAC experience. Core DNS is the platform we're looking at the moment. Terraform, Ansible. If you've got experience and cycles to spare, we'd love to see you around here. These slides will get shared at the end of this session, I believe. So there's some more words in here about our objectives. So as I said, the install documentation, self-serve, has been iterated most recently, thanks to Sam and Nathan working on another on-prem deployment recently. Again, as I mentioned, those core IAC improvements are continuing. There's refactorings, simplifications to try to make the IAC more appropriately structured for longer term maintenance and more flexible in terms of dropping in different components to suit particular adopter wants or needs. And as I mentioned, we're still ticking along, removing that last AWS dependency. So where are we going the rest of this PI and beyond? Well, we are definitely going to complete the removal of that Route 53. That may even be complete before the end of PI session in Kigali. Fingers crossed. We're going to continue to iterate our installation and maintenance documentation. Again, experience from real world deployments is the most valuable input to that process, and that's continuing. Folks on this work stream like Sam and Nathan that you've heard about, are continuing to support adopters and users with their on-premise deployments. And we will continue to do that in this workstream for the foreseeable future. Thank you to everyone that's contributed so far. We have a workstream Slack channel, on-premises deployment. Please reach out to me if you want to be invited to any of the regular meetings or participate, donate some time, throw your ideas onto the table. We'd be grateful to hear from you. Sorry to have just a short update, Paul.
No, that's great. That's great.
Anybody questions?
Anyone want to comment as opposed to question?
James, Paul, if I can add.
Please.
Yeah, thanks for touching on that, Paul, earlier. So to give context for everyone, one of the work streams, the merchant work stream, and the team that is doing that basis who wanted to deploy Moduloop on-prem and then showcase merchant payments on top of that. So Nathan and I were able to help them through the process, but I don't like taking too much credit for it because the documentation itself was pretty good. The existing docs, we just followed those, and there were a couple of issues we had to troubleshoot. There's one minor issue where some of the third-party dependencies we use, like Kafka, had issues where they made adding some configuration. The last stable release for Moduloop Congo a few months ago, that wasn't the case. So far it worked fine, but when Kafka made those changes, mandatory or default deployment was failing. So that's the only thing we fixed, but our docs are in good shape. I was very glad to see that. So Nathan was able to guide the team to help with the DNS issues they were facing. These are actually not Moduloop issues as such. As I was saying, Kafka, MySQL, and DNS, these are things that we expect infrastructure teams of their own to deal with, but we were able to help them with resolving those. Our focus is on Moduloop, Helm charts, Moduloop components, and they were rock solid, no issues with that. Thank you, James, Paul.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, James. Is there anything else you wanted to say on that?
No, unless anyone has any more questions.
No. Okay, good. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, we have a new workstream lead, Lewis, who's going to give us an update on the localization stream. Lewis, are you there? He was earlier. Lewis, hi. Good to see you.
Hi, Paul.
Hi.
Good to see you too. Sorry for the machine, just like machine was coming up. My apologies, I didn't use the theme for the
That's fine.
presentation.
It doesn't matter.
Please delete me the experience with that. Hello, are you able to see my screen?
We can see your document, yes.
Thank you so much. So, thank you so much for the opportunity to meet the workstream. Also, just give an update in today's PI meeting. So, our objectives for this workstream, which is localization, the three. Number one, we are trying to address the currency issue to ensure that currency is localized. Number two, we are also dealing with time zone. And the last one is to ensure to have multiple languages that will be supported on the platform. So what is our focus? It's Number one is to define the time and currency localization requirements, which introduction looked at. Then for the next, our focus is to implement currency in terms of localization. So far, what have we managed to achieve? During the last online convening, when we met, I think that was sometime in July, if I'm not mistaken, we managed to make two presentations. The first one showed an MVP demonstrating the capability of the time zone being changed and how it was proposed to being done by pool. Then also there was a demo as well on language localization, despite the fact that it was done on a local project on a local machine. However, there was a demo which showed how language localization would work. Then on the currency configuration, the requirements have been defined for currency. And the only thing that is now remaining is to see how best we then progress for implementation. So what are the major pending tasks that we have on our work stream? Number one, it is for the time zone configuration for each user. So as we have demoed, we then now need to see how best we're going to implement the configuration ability of each user on a machine when they are using Moja Loop. Then number two, which we still have to complete, is the time zone for a single hub. This will help us to have consistency on the system when we have a single time system that will be using the system. Number three is the local language localization development. The things that have been done in this one is the research and requirements which are put together. So what we then need to do is to have it implemented on test, have an MVP ready, and then once that is done for review and deployments, rather developments, we then progress to the next stage. So with where we are sitting today, what are the next steps? Number one is the time zone localization. We need to begin working in the time zone localization, ensure that users are able to change their time of the system. And number two, we have to finalize on the single hub time zone where we have a single uniform time for the system. Number three, we also need to start implementing language localization. And the last one is to have the currency definition be operational in our system at the moment we're done with the MVP. So these are the three segments of our localization workstream that we want to focus on as we take up the workstream. Thank you so much for the time. This was my short presentation of this particular meeting. Maybe I'll take questions.
Thank you, Liz. Does anyone want to ask any questions? Can't see any questions. Okay. Now, Liz, can you clarify? Well, first of currency configuration should be fairly straightforward. It's just simply a matter of deploying with the appropriate currencies configured. So that should be an easy thing to do. It's a question of then having an account, having accounts in the various currencies in order to operate it. Time zone localization is more difficult and can cause issues with auditing. So it's about presentation as opposed to the actual logs and the tagging of transactions, etc. So that's achievable, but it's not a trivial task, particularly if the users on a hub might be in different time zones as well. So, which could be the case. But yes, I think that's an achievable piece of work. Language localization is obviously achievable, but it is quite a substantial piece of work, I think. So I would imagine that you are going to focus on time zone localization as a starting point. Is that a reasonable thing to say?
Indeed, great, Paul. As you have
Yes.
rightly put it, currency configuration is more straightforward. Then the next one, which is more cardinal to us, especially seeing that it is going to affect how transactions are going to be performed or how they are going to be presented, especially when it comes to issues of auditing, then the time zone issue. So while we are fully focusing on the time zone issue, we also just want to ensure that the other segment, which will be currency, is also completed and set so that we have 2 items closed.
Yep. Okay, good. Are you content with the resources you have? Do you need anyone else to assist? And what do you think you might be able to achieve by the end of the PI in November?
Thank you so much for the question. Am I content? Yes. However, I haven't fully engaged. For instance, I know that we have James Simbi as part of the team.
Yeah.
I haven't really engaged with him. I think then this means that I have to take a step to engage so that we see some progression on the work stream. But that does not mean that we are not open to welcoming more hands on the team. It is always great to have more people joining Workstream so that we can close most of these issues as soon as possible. Then on the last item, what are we looking forward to achieve for the end of the PI? I'm very confident that we should be able to finalize on the time zone as well as the currency.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Unless anyone else has any more questions, I'll move on from that. No, no further questions. Okay, well, thank you very much, Lewis, and thank you for presenting today.
Thank you so much, Paul and the team.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is 2 separate work streams being reported together. Paul Baker and Julie Guetta are going to talk about FX and interscheme. So Paul, Julie, over to you.
Right. I think Julie's going to start. Let's let the plan, Julie. You can hear this is well rehearsed.
Hi, sure. So on my side, as I mentioned, I didn't prepare any slides, so I was more thinking of giving an update of what has been done as completed and what are the next steps. So high level in terms of what have been done is we reviewed and defined how an interscheme scheme should work. So we basically spent some time on creating a feature and reviewing the acceptance criteria for this feature. Then we reviewed the design in detail, mainly put together by Infitex and led by Paul. And we also reviewed in detail the testing approach that Infitex is planning to follow and how they're planning to effectively enhance the golden test pass. So that's what we completed, and I think Paul will present in more detail of what has been designed and so on. In terms of the next step, so the developments are done and the code is being pushed by Infitex. So in terms of the work stream per se, the work stream will stop because effectively we completed our work. So our regular meeting will cease, and basically will be very much on an ad hoc demand that the group will gather again to be consulted on a specific issue. But yeah, as of now, basically the work is done. So thank you to everyone who participated to the work stream and help on the definition of the acceptance criteria and the review of the design and testing approach. All over to you.
Thanks, Julie. Okay, so I thought it was appropriate to combine the updates from both these work streams because they in the COMESA DRPP scheme they combined and they both need to work together. So it just seemed like a more effective way of updating this. So let me jump to it. So at the top row, I've got, well, on the left, I've got current, what we currently got available. In the middle is where we're planning to be by the end of the PI. And then things that are still outstanding on the work stream that are in the roadmap. The top row is interscheme, the bottom row is currency conversion. Just at a high level, if you glance at this, you'll notice there's a lot of black on the left and less so in the middle and less on the roadmap side. So high level, we've got a lot done. I would like to say that on the current version, we are MVP complete. So what I mean by that is we've got a minimal viable product with features working end to end. That doesn't mean we're not going to be adding to it because we do have a few things that we're planning on extending on this MVP before the end of the PI. But we do have a working end-to-end system that supports both interscheme and currency conversion. So I think that's a big milestone, and I'm very happy to finally have got there and happy to be presenting that update to everyone here. So high level, there's so much that's added. It's very hard to summarize this, but I've tried to do that from a feature point of view. So on interscheme, we have a proxy service. We have on-demand discovery. We're supporting the P2P use case end to end. We're also supporting the cross-currency P2P use case. And we are exchanging certificates across the schemes, and we have infrastructure as code support. We have an inter-scheme golden path test collection, and we have a detailed transactional report so that we can demonstrate that this functionality is working appropriately end to end. On the currency conversion side, we have a payer DFSP initiated conversion in place. We have support for FXPs. We're supporting the cross-currency P2P send use case. The multilateral net settlement is supported for cross-currency transactions. Infrastructure support for the functionality. We have extended the golden path test collection to include the FX functionality. So this is now core functionality. And we have a detailed transaction report that demonstrates the working parts. So where we're hoping to get in by the end of the PI is we would like to extend the modular loop connector support to handle multiple FXPs. There's a bit of extra communication that needs to happen in negotiating and choosing the right set of FXPs. We see some work there. Continuous growth settlement support for FX requires a bit of work. We're hoping to do that. Supporting the financial portal for cross-currency transfers, or should I rather say transactions, because the transaction has got the sort of liquidity purchasing against that transfer, and the combined we would like to be able to inspect and trace a transaction of that sort, and to be able to see both parts of that, the currency conversion and the transfer itself. And then we would also like to support the receive amount type. And then we've got, we know that these work streams aren't complete. There's always more that we want to do. So I've listed those out on the roadmap. So let me get to a a summary of what the systems look like now and what the delivery is. So the DRPP, this is the scheme, this is the centralized regional scheme of COMESA that COMESA is building out. And it's quite special for multiple reasons. So in this, I would like to show at a very high simplified view of what an end-to-end transfer looks like, but also in the context of highlighting why we think the DRPP scheme is so special. So the first thing is it involves multiple currencies. So in this illustration, I'm going to have two different currencies. And in this example, it's the Zambian kwacha and the Malawian kwacha. So we've got two different currencies that are, and the TRPP is the centralized scheme that really has accounts in both of those currencies. So it and manages the translation between them. Then in each of the currencies, we have schemes, and we are connecting those schemes together to the DRPP scheme and providing this interconnected set of schemes. And when in each of the local schemes, so at the moment I've labeled these as emulated national IAPSs, because our plan is to emulate those national schemes where there isn't a national scheme IAPS available. So in this example, that's what we've got. And the DFSPs connect directly to these local national IAPS schemes. In the center, and this is another, I think, a valuable part of this center, we got a foreign exchange provider. So all the conversion happens in the center, and it's crossing the two different currencies because obviously it is managing the flow of funds between those two currencies. And we're connecting these schemes together using what we call a proxy. Now, a transfer happens really using 4 phases at the highest level. So each one of these arrows is really a set of communication in both directions, but just for illustration purposes and sort of high level value it is initiated by the payer DFSP, and then the communication is essentially end-to-end directly to the payee FSP or the foreign exchange provider. And I think that's the value of what we're trying to do with this inter-scheme work, is have this sort of end-to-end communication. So first step, confirmation of accounts. Second step is an agreement of terms to provide that liquidity cover with the foreign exchange provider. Third term is agreement of terms with the end FSP on the transfer terms. And then lastly, the transfer and clearing of funds. So, and the reason why we think this is really important is this is the fundamental part of what we think an inclusive instant payment system is this the non-repudiation allows us to have irrevocable push payments that are quick, low cost, and we provide support for discovery and agreement phases, and we have a cryptographic lock. So how are currencies converted? I thought it would be good to just focus on that quickly. There are really 3 steps. And in this example, the payer FSP is making this agreement with the foreign exchange provider, which is in the DRPP scheme. And it starts off by requesting the sort of liquidity cover, requesting the terms and rates for this liquidity cover in a destination currency. Then it agrees to those terms for that cover, and then finally it'll get notification that the transfer has been completed. This is notification to the FXP. Now, this simplified approach, I think, is really powerful because it allows multiple FXPs to easily build an integration into a system and then fund liquidity for international transfers. So the idea behind this is that we end up with a competitive foreign exchange rate market, and it's managed centrally. So obviously to bring costs down. So how are funds cleared? This is also an important aspect of this. And there's lots of different ledgers, as you see, but mainly for each entity. So we've got FSPs, they've got a set of their own ledgers. Then we've got national schemes, they've also got a set of ledgers. And in the DRP scheme, we've got sets of ledgers in both currencies. And then similarly for the national scheme and the FSP. So the way that works, I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but essentially the linking between the national scheme and the inter-scheme through the proxy goes through a proxied account, which another way of thinking of that is an international clearing fund for the international payments and a jurisdictional fund in the DRPP. And similarly on the national scheme on the payee side, we'll also have a clearing account. Okay, then how is non-repudiation achieved? Because this is one of the key objectives of the inter-scheme work. And we do that using, firstly, I'm wondering how to describe this. Effectively, we've got a whole lot of schemes that are connected together, but the message that is sent right in the beginning from the FSP is exactly the same message that is received on the other side. So what we've got message sort of transparency, but this allows us to do an end-to-end verification. In other words, this interconnected set of schemes is allowing this FSP to directly have an agreement with the other FSP in another country. And I think that's a very powerful concept and is what's been delivered here today. And then the second part of this non-repudiation is we have a cryptographic lock. The terms of the agreement are cryptographically locked, and there's two parts of that agreement. There's an agreement of conversion from the foreign exchange provider, and we've got an agreement on the terms of the transfer by the payee. The FSP produces that lock, and then the payer agrees to that. And this set of inter-schemes, the motivation behind it is this non-repudiation end-to-end substantially reduces the cost in the interconnected set of networks. So we've got a whole lot of references on this delivered work. I'll start off with golden pass tests. So these tests are passing. We have a generic set of golden pass tests, which show that this FXP work has been completed. It might be quite valuable to download this presentation and click on these links and go to the test reports and just see the depth of the testing that has been done for each of these pieces of work. Then the inter-scheme golden path test collection, it was kept separate because inter-scheme is optional. It doesn't have to be included in the deployment. And as a result, it's just got a separate test collection. But this test collection includes testing the scheme as if it was a sender, sort of a payer DFSP scheme, connected scheme, or a payee DFSP connected scheme. but and it runs both those tests on the same scheme. So you deploy a single scheme, you can test it from either direction in a failover transfer. We also have participation tools that have been enhanced. So the merge loop connectors and standard SDK components, they've also been updated. We also have a series of documentations to support this. Merge loop API changes. We've got some inter-scheme documents and cross-currency documents from the work streams. They're good references here. And then here's a list of all the repositories that have changed. Now, some of these links actually point to feature branches, and some of them don't. I've linked them to feature branches where we've had a consolidated list, sort of combined set of features. We haven't always run the updates in that way. So where we don't, I've just pointed to the main repository, and you can look through the detailed merges that have come through. And that is it. So maybe if there are any questions, I can go back to this original slide. Sorry, it's taking longer than I thought, where we show the progress. Are there any questions?
I think that's a tremendous amount of work, Paul. And congratulations on achieving that. Everything you have so far, so well done. My one criticism of this slide is that it's PI 25 at the moment.
I was trying to remember which PI, and I thought, aren't we in 24, but the next
No,
one?
we're in 25. We're coming up to the PI 26 convening.
Okay, I got that wrong. Apologies.
If that's the only thing you got wrong, incredible. Well done.
Okay.
Now, so essentially, you've done the bulk of the work now, and you're getting ready to rolling it out, perhaps in PI 25 for MVP pilot. Is that fair to say?
There's more to do. We
Yep.
want to do the ISO work.
Of course, yes, which is our next session.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Does anyone have any questions before we move on? No. Okay. Good. Well, the next session is actually Paul and Julie again talking about ISO 222, which is related clearly, as you've already said.
Okay, so let me basically provide an update of again, what we've completed and the next thing. So we basically defined a catalog of ISO 222 messages, and by this I mean mapping between the existing API and the set of messages. Through this work, we decided to exclude the admin API. And through this work, we also decided to take out all the third-party API. So the third-party API will be managed under a separate work stream. So that was the level 1 of the work. Then once we basically defining this catalog of messages, then we started to go to the next level of detail, which is for each field in the FSP IOP API to understand to which exact ISO field it will map. So right now we are progressing with this, and we are having regular meeting to review this field to field mapping. So that will be basically the focus on the next few sessions, on the next few workstream sessions. Paul, I pass you the floor if you want to add anything.
Yes, no, that's exactly where we are. Work is starting to pick up on this work stream, and to help facilitate good development in this and good testing, we're going to take a test-driven development approach to this. So the first part of how we're going to tackle this is we're going to create a translation so that we can for TTK so that we can translate our existing Golden Path test collections. Well, let's put it this way. We're not going to change the test collections. We're going to add a translation layer so that we can send ISO test messages using our existing Golden Path collection. And that'll allow us to check that we aren't breaking functionality as we progress through this this implementation. So we'll start off with a whole set of Golden Path tests sending ISO messages, and then as we make adjustments to the functionality, we will see those tests starting to be ticked off or passing as the features get built out. So that's the approach that we're taking, but it starts off with the hard work that Julie and Michael have been doing on giving us detailed maps, field level maps and processes that's required to do this work. So yeah, so going to implement the results of the hard work that Julie and Michael have been doing.
And when do you think you might be progressing on this or producing outputs?
We should have it working by the end of the PI. So that's the plan.
6 weeks.
Yes, I'm hoping to have the core services, in fact, working in 4 weeks. But then we still need to do the modular loop connector work.
Okay. Good. Okay, really good. Thank you, James. Thank you, Paul and Julie. That's great. Does anyone have any questions on ISO 222? Nope. Okay, it's a question-free day today. Okay, we're going to move on briskly to vNext and Julie. Would you like to give us an update on the status of vNext?
I think James will start and then
Or James. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
In time-honored tradition, I will share a few hastily constructed slides for your viewing pleasure. Just check I can see the chat and any raised hands. Okay, can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay. So, objective of this workstream is to move modular loop to a point where the official release is based off vNext components. In progress so far this PI. We have a complete release candidate backlog, which has been shared with the community. We have some community members actively working on priority items from that backlog. A Tiger Beetle integration has been dropped into GitHub, and that has been presented to the design authority. We're now in the process of reviewing that. There's a few questions popped up during that review. So that process is likely to take a matter of weeks, but before the end of the PI, we will hopefully have that integration merged onto the main branch. And it's hard for us to know right now, but we are expecting some progress towards the release candidate status as those community members continue working on the backlog. We do have extremely limited resources at the moment. So again, I'm going to shout out and ask for support. Anybody with TypeScript experience, We have some gaps to fill on test, which are quite important at the moment. So anybody with test experience would be gratefully welcomed. At the last report out, we called out that we wanted to estimate in broad brush strokes only the effort required to complete those essential tasks on the backlog to get us to a release candidate. We've done that effort estimation, and the backlog is now, like I say, being actively worked on. The Tiger Beetle integration is in DA review. What are we going to do for the rest of the PI? Well, the DA is going to keep focusing on that Tiger Beetle integration and the discussion around that. Like I said, there's a couple of open points being discussed at the moment, but in the next 6 weeks or so, before the end of the PI, we should have some resolution. And we're going to continue to support the completion of those other items on the backlog in the coming weeks, although we're not entirely sure how much progress we'll make through those. Julie, did you have anything to add before I wrap up? Again, it's a very short report out, this one.
Yeah, so I think like I wanted to again insist of the fact that we desperately need some resource to move the backlog. So anybody who wants to contribute like is really welcome to join. I think like except Tiger Beetle, we've not really been able to progress any item on the backlog because of lack of resourcing. So yeah, we are desperately like looking for resources definitely. As thank you. Yeah, the detail like if you want to join. The sprint planning lately has been consistently cancelled because we have no contributors for the work at this stage. So again, anybody who wants to contribute later, please join.
Thanks, Julie. Anybody have any questions?
No
Okay,
questions.
thanks everybody.
Okay, well, thank you,
Further
James.
up.
And
Thanks, Paul.
Yep.
Back to you.
yeah, thank you, James and Julie. Let's move briskly on, James. You're up again on performance optimization. But you'd like to say a few words on that?
Yeah, if I'd have realised I was up next, I wouldn't have stopped
Yeah.
screen sharing. It takes me a bit of setup time. Okay, let me set up again. Performance optimizer.
Your last one.
Performance characterizer. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, this is going to be a short update as well. Oh, hang on a sec.
All right.
Yeah, I'm missing some slides. Hang on a sec. I'm missing some slides. Why did I not see those in my... Okay. I think I've resolved that. Performance characterization. This work stream has quite a few objectives. Too many to go into a huge amount of detail in here, but over the next slides in this deck, which again will be shared after this call, and there's a lot more detail. So if you're interested in seeing what our objectives are, please go and have a read. So what have we been doing so far this PI? Again, trying to be product driven and taking input from our adoption community. We've started work researching a white paper to describe characteristics of Moduloop from a performance perspective, with a view to trying to provide a model that potential adopters and users can use to help them predict and understand the way the performance of their deployments of Moduloop might change based on infrastructure topology, hardware characteristics, etc. We've spent some time trying to find some resources, cloud and bare metal. So thanks to folks who've been helping out with that in the background. We do have a couple of options, and we have potentially, although not guaranteed, potentially unlocked some budget in the coming months to run some of these supporting experiments. We are working on narrowing down the set of test cases and the controlled environments that we're going to use to run these test cases to gather our data. We're going to try to cover as wide a variety of deployment scenarios and infrastructure patterns and characteristics as possible. Gather the data from those, and then write a white paper exploring the findings in a bit more detail. We do have a data set that's been captured over the last year of work on this performance work stream. But it's not sufficient really to give us a very broad picture. So we're hoping that this initiative to write a white paper will focus efforts around the community, focus our resources on that one single objective of being able to understand and model performance of Moduloop in various different scenarios, from on-prem to cloud and hybrid. So that's what we will be doing. Well, that's what we have been doing, and that is what we will be doing for the remainder of this PI. It's likely that progress will be slow, just because we don't have a huge amount of committed resources. Again, if you are willing to help, please come and join the party. Thanks to everybody that's helped so far. Anybody have any questions or comments?
No, would appear not.
There you go.
Okay, great.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you,
Yeah.
James. And now we're going to move to Sam, who's going to talk about platform quality and security, and then core and releases. So over to you, Sam.
Thank you, Paul. Hi, everyone. Last couple of sessions, so I appreciate your attention. Feel free to interrupt me. We're more than welcome and happy to answer. So we'll start with the platform quality and security update for today. So we had two major items and a few minor items that we wanted to do this PI. One was contributing to the Moduloop upcoming release or the next Moduloop release in the area of platform quality and security. Initially, we were focusing on addressing the vulnerabilities, the depend-about alerts, and alerts that were reported by the tooling that we use in Moduloop, like Sonar Cloud, and there is another tool, SNYK, SNYK, those kind of things. The other goal was to come up with a software bill of materials for repositories in Moduloop. So those are two main items. The other ones, we wanted to do some blog posts and do some hardening on Moduloop repositories and things like that, as well related to Moduloop assets. So on that front, so there is some introduction here around what software bill of material is. I won't go through everything, but allow me to cover a few things. We've explored a couple of tools, Cyclone DX and SPDX. Before even I go into this, I want to call out and give a shout out or give credit to Shuchita. So we had 3 interns who were who came on board to Moduloop for contribution as part of a program called Dedicated Mentoring Program. And 3 of them worked in different areas. And one of them, Shuchita, she contributed to this area, platform quality and security. She worked on 2 things, primarily automating gathering of GitHub metrics that we use on the maintenance side. And the other one was this direct contribution to this platform quality and security work stream. On this side, a software bill of material is, especially in our world like JavaScript, TypeScript, and Node.js, because we use numerous other dependencies which have nested dependencies and packages, we wanted to look at the source as we call provenance, like what is a very basic package that is used, and then the others that we are using, breaking it down and look at all the nested dependencies as well. It gives us a capability to react very quickly. Let's say NVIDIA that we use for alerts recognize the vulnerability in a particular dependency or package. Then it gives having a software bill of material for Mojoloop gives us the capability to react very quickly. So it helps us identify which package is affected. Are we using it or not? If we are using it, how? And it helps us reduce the reaction time. Instead of us going and searching through all of our repositories to see where it is being used, it helps us react. So that is one thing that we did this PI. We are ready to, we are prepared to present it at the DA. The goal we wanted to have was have a set of software bill of materials for all of our repositories, especially those that we ship as part of the Mojoloop releases, Mojoloop platform. And then extending that, we wanted to automate that process as well. So right now what we have is a instance that clones all of our repositories on a monthly basis, and it runs these scripts to get these reports for all. So if you look at Central Ledger, for example, what it does is it looks at all the packages that are used from the package.json file and dependencies, and then it drills down into each of those, and then it gives us a report. So this report will include things like, okay, what is the version number, who is the author, when was it last released, what is the license type, what is the description. We can have more details, like there are some other details that are not as interesting, but there are some key details that we want to look at periodically as well. For example, if something is not maintained for more than a year or 2 years, we want to see if that can be replaced with a better version. If there are vulnerabilities and if there is a flag on one of them, that gives us the capability to react quickly. So that was the background behind why we wanted to do this. And this PI, we were able to do that. Paul Macon was there earlier when Shrita showed us quickly how we can do that, and an outcome of that as well. To give you some more context, recently there was a vulnerability in a package called tar xz, which is used for like unzipping packages, and it's a very widely used tool in Linux-based environments. And we had to react quickly to that. And at that time, it occurred to us, and especially those on the Workstream side, to do something like this, so that it'll have numerous benefits. So that in the future, when we hear something like that, we can just do a quick search here, and then we can identify which services are affected by that. And if those are affected, then we can drill into the code base and see how those are being used, or if the vulnerabilities areas affect us as well. Any questions on this? Okay, so that's what we have here for software bill of material tooling. We have individual software bill of materials generated for all the repositories, and then there is also a centralized list for all the repositories that we created. So what it will look like, let's say there is a package JSON pointer, for example, then this list, what aggregated list, what it has is it lists out all the Mojoloop services that use this package. And then that will help us with quickly identifying and reacting. We also, one of the applications we also heard about is where some regulators or central banks want to look at the licenses, all the licenses that are used in a particular platform when they're considering platforms or payment systems as part of the RFP process. And this gives us the capability to generate this within seconds, or we even have the reports readily, which we can submit as well as part of that. So that was a big accomplishment for this PI. And then hardening of Mojoloop police, it's a continued process. We'll continue to do that, keep addressing alerts, and set a high bar for our Mojoloop releases. The others we couldn't get it this PI, but this lays a good foundation to proceed with the rest of the tasks in the coming weeks, and PIs as well, such as looking at OpenSSF a badge for Mojoloop, and more on the documentation and blog post side of things as well for Mojoloop. There was one other task that we wanted to do, stress and load testing of Moduloop. Previously, we had an offer from one of the community members to do this for Moduloop about 6 months ago. But at the time, we were deep into performance testing and enhancement of Moduloop. So at the time, we made the decision to put it off until for a time when that is completed. And now we are with the deliverables from the performance workstream and the contributions enhancements that were done. We felt like we are now ready to do this. So it's on the backlog. Whenever the team is ready to take it up again, we'll continue with that, providing a sandbox and taking feedback from there. So so they look at one of the operating principles or invariants for Moduloop is graceful degradation of service. So those are the kinds of things we want to look at, and it has security implications for Moduloop as well. So that is something we want to do. Shall I go ahead and show how that software bill of material looks like?
I think that would be very useful. Yes. Please.
Okay. So I have gotten this file for Central Ledger, like one of the repositories. This is a sample one. We've generated this for all the repos, even vNext ones, and taken a look at those. So it has several options. Like, for example, if I take a dependencies and then let's say components, and if I look at the details, so there is a HTML page that gives a quick view. We've generated CSV files initially, but we thought to give a user-friendly view, it'll be good to look at as a HTML page. So if I check those, then the font size may be small here, but you can see in Central Ledger, these are all the components that are used and the various details. For example, if you see there is this map box dependency that we used, and then you can see the version number, and then it's hash text, the license. This is one interesting thing for us. And then a website for that particular package, for any documentation, their issues. So the whole list of things. And then I'll say one thing about this column called publish details. Initially, the tool that we used, CycloneDX, did not provide the release date. So we used another NPM tool, which gave us the date and then appended that information to the CSV file so that we can have that as part of this view as well. So there's a description. So if you see how powerful this is, it's essentially listing out all the dependencies that we use here. Like there'll be thousands. This is the nature of the world we live in. But you can quickly look at what's here. You can search for something and look at the version number. Go to the issues, their homepage for any information like deployment instructions, those kind of things as well. Let me see if there is I can show the aggregated sheet as well. One second. Okay, let me share this. I'm sharing a sheet here, Paul. Let me know if you can see this. Yeah, this is the similar tool that Mac uses for Excel sheet. So if you see, there is a particular package here, and so this is the whole aggregated sheet that we prepared for all of the services. So the previous one we looked at was particular to a repository. And this one combines all the repositories that we are interested in, or all that are of release quality that are included in Moduloop release. So here it takes every package or dependency or component and then lists out what are all the services that are using it. So if you can see here, for example, if you see remapping, then along with the details of that particular package, you can see that different versions of that dependency are being used in different services. So here, if you see platform shared tools, Account Oracle, all of them are using the same package, but different versions. So 2.2.1 is being used in these various. So it's actually very interesting to see that the same component, different versions of it are being used in both vNow and vNext repositories as well. And it gives us also that capability to make sure like we're being uniform, and you need to see why exceptions are being made. or if we need to upgrade any of the services. So those kind of things. Any questions on this one? If not, I'll stop sharing. Okay. Let me see if there is anything left on the PQS side of things. I think that's all on the PQS side. Let me pause there for a bit if you have any questions. If not, we can move to the next one. Paul?
Yeah, it's just this workstream is a very epitome of quality product. Yeah, it's really interesting to see, and you did show me those spreadsheets as well, and I thought it was really interesting to see what was being used and by whom, by which service, etc. So yeah, it's really useful in terms of maintenance. So thank you. Anyone else have any questions? No. Okay. Thank you, Sam. In that case, we'll move directly to the core and releases workstream. Sam.
All right.
I know you presented just
Thank you,
last
Paul.
week. But
Yeah, so last week, anyone at the product council, we looked at modular core and releases, but I'll briefly cover what's happening here as well. So the Moduloop latest release, version 16 Congo, is out there. And then the IAC release initially that came out with Moduloop v16 was v5, but the IAC team is churning out release after release with many good enhancements. And the current stable IAC release we're using for sandboxes and for deployment of Moduloop is 5.3.8. Won't go into detail here, but the Modulo core release is what supports our core functionality like peer-to-peer, the various use cases, peer-to-peer, request-to-peer, bulk, and then the various settlement models and participant lifecycle management. And the Modulo platform itself, the IEC release comes bundled with the supporting components as well. That include the gateway and load balancers, the tool Lori stack for enforcing role-based access control, Istio gateway, and then components for supporting Modulo security, a finance portal, and the other tools as well for deployment and testing. And of course, integration and connectivity as well. So the goal for this PI, as usual, was to maintain the latest Modulo release and its supporting components, and then work on the upcoming release. And work has been ongoing on both those fronts. The current release is looking good. As we discussed as part of the on-prem deployment, there was one opportunity that we had to check how the Modulo deployment is looking like, especially in a setting that we don't typically use in our dev and QA environments. Our dev QA environments are on AWS, which we are very comfortable with, but it was good to see that the same works seamlessly in other environments as well. And we made a minor patch. So v16 is our major version still, but I recently made a patch release v16.04 with a minor config change in our default configuration that addresses that Kafka config issue. But as we heard from Paul and Julie earlier, there's been a lot of work ongoing on, thanks Paul and Julie for that, and the workstream members there. A lot of work ongoing on the FX and inter-scheme proxy side of things. We have the team doing testing on some of the dev and QA environments with the inter-scheme setup. We had presentations done on the design authority and discussions happening in various special interest groups. But my understanding from the release work stream is that we have the various features ready to be released, or they'll be ready to be released by the end of this PI. So working with the team there to support them as required, and we'll ensure that we have the new test collections. We'll follow the usual testing cycle that we follow as part of the release candidate validation. And then we already have a name. So Paul, with the product council support, we came up with a name for the upcoming release v17 as well. but there might be another maintenance release v1610 between now and then, which has some security updates and a couple of pending changes from the last PI as well. So those are the things that are in store for this PI. Made some progress, and some of the ongoing activities include testing these modular features on our dev and QA environments. We have our dev QA environments, which are basic, like a very bare bones modular deployment of core services and some testing tools. We have these without things like gateways or finance portal. These are deployed using Helm charts. We don't use IAC, but we do have one sandbox where we do test our modular playtest release, and testing happens continuously. But the environments that we use constantly for dev and QA focus on the core side of things. So there we have testing ongoing for this. We have one environment where the release candidate testing was happening. We had to put that on hold for a bit, but we'll resume that now as we identify the root cause, and we'll move forward on that. And there are some, there is one other goal on the product side that we wanted to do as well, where we wanted to have finance portal part of our tooling. Because having that separation between Moduloop core and finance portal is causing some issues and gaps in understanding of Moduloop. So we wanted to address that by having the finance portal part of our various tools, starting from core test harness to Helm install. Of course, it's already part of the IAC, but other places where it's not very clear that it has to be deployed on top of a Moduloop core deployment, we're trying to address that. So we have an environment where we are testing that out. And we made a recent patch release of Moduloop 1604 that happened, and the testing of finance deployment, finance portal is happening. There is one issue that we are seeing with the settlement UI as well. So we're investigating that, and hopefully that will be resolved soon as well. These are the ongoing activities. And then V1610 RC, still planning to make that release before V17 comes. So we'll continue focusing on that the rest of this PI. A quick look at the dashboard. 16 we released in PI 23, looking good. It had some huge performance enhancements at the time, and there were big changes in IC as well. A new version with a new gateway, things like that. Still stable. Very happy with how it's holding up. But 1610 is something that will come up with these more performance enhancements, merchant payment feature, and general maintenance as well. And then V17, of course, is the big release we've been waiting for with FX and inter-scheme changes. Any questions for the release and maintenance workstream?
Anyone? No? Okay. Thank you, Sam. That was a good readout. Very useful.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, if you don't have, if you have something that you want to see released, or if you have any questions related to deployment or anything, feel free to reach out on one of our Workstream channels. Thank you.
Yep. Good. Right. Thank you, Sam. On that note, that's our final session. So thank you to everyone. Thank you to everyone who's lasted the 2 hours as well. So great. And I would ask everyone who's presented who hasn't already sent me their presentation to send it to me, and I'll share it with the wider community. So thank you very much, and see you all again soon, I hope. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.